And now, ladies and gentlemen,
Put your thumbs up and say it's Tickety Boo.
Tickety Boo.
Tickety Boo, Tickety Boo, everything's Tickety Boo.
Tickety Boo, son. Tickety Boo.
Tickety Boo.
Welcome back to another episode of Tickety Boo. Today we're talking about those moments where life knocks you flat on your backside and you're convinced you're not getting back up again. We've all been there, the feeling, you know it, you're exhausted, you're overwhelmed, and you doubt you've got anything going right in your life. But here's something I've learned over and over again. Just when you think you're done, you discover strength you didn't even know you had. So today, let's talk about why you're so much stronger than you think you are and how recognizing that strength can begin to change everything. So guys, tell me honestly, when did you last surprise yourself by realising you're stronger than you actually think you are?
It's been a while. I say that. I've got one example. When I was transitioning from converting commercial buildings for clients to taking on a big block of flats that we built for ourselves, it weighed on me quite heavily having to be there on the tools.
Right.
The financial pressures and everything. And it did chip away at me. But every day we sort of got up and done what we needed to do. And it was at the end of that one when the local councillor cut the ribbon to open the block that I had this release of sort of emotion, and I suddenly realised, yes, I thought so many times when the imposter syndrome was kicking in, all the rest of it, I couldn't do it, but yeah, we did it.
What about yourself?
I'd say the most significant time that I can remember, it's a while back, but it was the end of my marriage. That knocked me for 6. And then, as we all know, it's like, so then it's end of marriage, end of where I'm living, end of a career, relocating with a reluctant teenager. So it's a lot of those triggers that maybe some of our listeners recognize one or all of them. And my mum had just died. So it's just like all of that. And I remember moving back to the UK and I was like, I'm going to do this. So the resilience that I was battling through at the time, I was in survivor mode. Like, I've got to make this work. I've got to but then through that, I realized it was someone else who pointed out to me how resilient I was. And I hadn't realized that actually I'd been resilient my entire life. Like any setback, any upset, any knockback, like I just dusted myself up and got on with it. But I didn't know there was a word for it.
But why do we then, like I've just noticed what you've both said, is you attach how strong you are based on what you can do or what you've achieved.
Mm-hmm.
Why do we do that?
I suppose it's an internal validation, or it's a way of quantifying your strength, which really, I suppose it's not right, is it? But every day is a battle. There shouldn't have to be something actual physical.
I find that phrase in every day is a battle. That's, if you feel like every day is a battle, then you've got no choice but to be anything other than resilient and tough, have you? I mean, like, I would say if every day is a battle, I'm not saying every day shouldn't be a battle, but if it feels like every day is a battle, something's off, isn't it? Yeah. Something's out. Yeah.
Well, I think that's where it moved from, because when I was battling through, quite literally, whatever it's been, that's when, like, you're working harder, not better. Like, everything you're trying to do is a battle, and then it's, you learn through that you can do this, and so your resilience can actually be calm and powerful. It doesn't need to be like that battling into the wind. But I think for a lot of us, that's where we learn that we're resilient. When people say, oh my gosh, look at you rising again, look at you getting on with it again, look at you doing that. And resilience is a muscle that we learn, and we've like, yeah, I've gotten through this before. And so I think it's become softer as I've aged, because now any setback, like what maybe before any of us would have like battled through, got to make this work, actually becomes, I've done this before, I can do this again. This too will pass. It's much gentler, and it's like, and then you just get on with it.
But so are we kind of saying that resilience comes with age?
Yes.
Yes,
well,
no.
Life experience.
Life experience.
So, yeah, because I want to make sure that I want to be careful here that we're not saying because you're not old, whatever you define old to be. Because I think you can build mental resilience at any age if you've got
Absolutely.
healthy coping strategies and a good belief system.
I mean, I'm just thinking of young people who are the carers in their home.
Yeah.
As well. Or so it doesn't have to be something that happens to you, like getting divorced in life or anything major as an adult. Like some of our youth are the most resilient people you'll meet, and they're so inspiring. So I would say it's life experience, it's lived experience, and how you're navigating that.
Do you think a lot of that we've all got inner strength? It's just recognising and acknowledging the strength that you've got and sort of trusting in it.
I think it's probably, I think from my experience, when you're in the midst of something, you don't feel particularly strong because almost part of you goes, I shouldn't be in this situation. So I've maybe at an unconscious level, you feel like you've failed. But actually your resilience is actively working for you in that moment. It's just the way that you're feeling makes you think there's something off. If that kind of makes sense to you. And we are much stronger and we are much more resilient. But the thing is, I think when life has knocked you on your ass and you feel like you're down and out, it's quite easy to feel like you're not resilient, that somehow you've kind of failed, that there's something wrong with you that you should be able to handle. But you need to remember in that moment, you're still in the game, you're still functioning. It's like that fighter in the 11th round and you're waiting for the bell to go and you've got 30 seconds to go. But that 30 seconds feels like 30 minutes. It's that not wanting to tap out.
Yeah. And I think it's working through something.
Yeah. Breaking it down into little bits and pieces, because I think sometimes when we find ourselves in the midst of a situation, we just see the entirety, how big the whole situation is. And it just
Under
feels
any
like,
age too, for our listeners, like it can be the teenager who's having to care for a parent, or it could be someone later in life. Like age isn't the deciding factor here. It's experience and how you're getting through it and having that support system.
We have different phases in our life, so we look at different ways to be strong that are relevant to our environment at the time.
Yeah. I think resilience and strength is not about never feeling scared or anxious.
Oh gosh.
It's about allowing yourself to actually feel that. True resilience is about allowing yourself to feel that.
And doing it anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually realising that you can feel these overwhelming emotions, but you can keep moving forwards.
Well, that's right. Well, life was never meant to be easy. So that's where the lessons and the growth come from. So that's where being strong is.
I think of the, the Rocky phrase? You know, life's not all whatever it is, and life will keep knocking you down. It's not about that. It's about how many times you keep getting up and moving forwards. I've probably made a complete arse of that phrase, but you kind of you get the gist of what I'm saying. Resilience is about actually in those moments where you feel like you can't keep going, or your emotions and your thoughts are trying to convince you that you can't keep going, that actually you can.
And I think it's being flexible with it instead of rigid in how you're going to get through it, how you're going to cope with whatever situation is happening. There has to be an adaptability to it. And that is, I think adaptability can be a superpower. And that's how we learn and that's how we grow. Because we've talked about it before. It's that growth mindset versus fixed mindset. And so it's exploring that. And the other thing with resilience, which we haven't touched on yet, is there's actually 3 different types of resilience. There's emotional and there's mental, but there's also spiritual. And spiritual doesn't mean necessarily an organized religion, but it can be being in awe of there being something more than, or appreciating nature. So we can have resilience in all those areas. So it's not just these very obvious moments that we've all touched on. Yeah,
because you don't find out how strong you are in moments of comfort.
Yeah.
No, it's very true. And there are different places that we can sort of pull strength from.
Yeah.
Whether that's the people around us or we just find a new why. We rediscover our why. Now, back about 10 years ago, the building business I was running was an absolute nightmare. I was having issues with the staff. I'd not got paid on a big job. I had various issues with myself, and I was thinking, I can't do this. I'm done. The walls were closing in. And then at that time, completely unrelated to that business, Louise got ill. And I've gone from, well, all of a sudden, that collapse of everything just become more real for a second. But instead of me going down and sinking with it, what suddenly happened was, because Louise then needed me, I had
no choice.
I found the strength that we needed. So I broke away from the self-pity and found enough strength for both of us. And that was it. That was because my why changed. I had a new sort of motivation, which wasn't about me and my self-pity. It put all that other stuff into perspective.
I think you need to have your backside up against the wall.
Yeah.
Until you actually realise how truly resilient you are. It's only in those moments where you really get to tap into your inner strengths. Yeah. Like, you can have things falling apart, like you said with the business. It was like you didn't tap into your full resilience there, because you probably knew at some kind of level you've always got something that you could fall back and do, like jump on the tools yourself, or But when your life partner crashes, and then you're in a situation where you've got to hold everything up, you've got to get the family through, you've got to keep everything going, then you find out about resilience.
But it's ever so strange. Something when you thought, oh, this is going terribly, something else
puts it into contrast.
Really through a jump.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, not surviving just was not an option. And when you remove failure as an option because you have to. Yeah. It's incredible where you can find that strength from. It really is.
And each time you do that, you flex the resilience muscle.
And I like that you've just touched on, like, what's your why? If I think about times where I've had to get through it and like find my inner strength in divorce, it's like being there for my son. There's been times, so whether the why becomes yourself, because like, I will get through this, I think it's really important to have something that it gives it, well, for me personally, and for maybe some of our listeners, it gives you that drive. Like, okay, I've got to get through this because, or like, I've got to take care of my wife. For me, it was like, I've got it, like, I want to provide for my son. Like, I had deeper reasons, so it wasn't just about me.
Yeah, but there's something I want to talk about that I think we need to be careful of, which is sometimes resilience can lead us into unnecessary suffering.
Yeah.
And I don't like the phrase, but flogging a dead horse. Suffering in a lot of cases is optional.
Yeah.
I know in my life a lot where I felt I had to dig into mental resilience and just grit my teeth and keep going. I didn't actually have to do that. I just felt in that moment it was the only option that I had. It was almost like I needed to test myself, but weirdly at the same time punishing myself.
And also people can get addicted to that. That's like, they thrive on that.
The chaos theory.
The chaos, yeah.
The chaos theory, because it becomes familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I suppose if you're not grinding and you're not working hard and you're not hustling, and you feel like, I need to be resilient, I need to keep going, I suppose the flip side of that can feel quite frightening. Actually bowing out of it. So I thought, the trap that I fell into is I saw strength as me not breaking down and not giving up. That's not resilience.
No.
It's really powerful knowing when to stop doing something and when to let go, when to move on, when that job, that relationship, that career actually isn't the best thing for you, and to let go of it.
That's it. I mean, and then where do you get the difference between knowing that you're being strong and you're just being pig-headed, and it's a prize keeping you somewhere where you shouldn't be?
Yeah. So true strength is actually letting stuff fall apart if it needs to.
Yeah.
Because that's where you dig into resilience.
How strong and vulnerable have you got to be to walk away from a situation and, walk away from the familiarity?
That takes strength.
Yeah, no, that is strong now. That's a flip coin. So strength isn't all about sticking at the situation that you're in. It's about understanding and having the strength to walk away if you need to, and that's the right thing for you to do.
I think, we've all had points in our life, haven't we, where we feel like we've very close to or reaching the limit of what we're capable of doing. It starts very much with a feeling, but it actually turns out what you think is your limit is quite far away from what your actual limit is.
Yeah, well, for me, that feeling of being at the limit and not strong, it normally comes about 3 months after me saying to like, I've got a really good idea. Why don't we do this? So,
yeah. Maybe scrub the good ideas for a bit.
Yeah, I think we're probably going into the realms of stupidity there over strength.
The thing is, a lot of the time, the strength we doubt we have is actually the strength we do have.
Mm-hmm.
We just struggle to see it. Sometimes it's just a case of somebody else reminding us that you're actually a lot stronger than you think you are.
Yeah, and part of that resilience, and anytime anyone's facing something tough, challenging, or a setback, is to reflect back on other moments that were similar or maybe completely different where you have gotten through it, because we learn through experience. That's where we go, you know what, last time this happened, or maybe it's a different scenario. So we can find strength in reflecting back on the things that we've gotten through. Because that is what resilience is. So it doesn't always have to be the same setback or the same great idea as for you. It can be something else.
Agreed. Now, that's what you're kind of saying there is what we have got that sometimes we don't realise. Yeah. We've got a proven track record.
Yeah.
And
that's how we change our brain.
That's it. So we've won 100% of the, we're still here. 100% of the difficulty that we've had, we've overcome. We've survived and we're still here.
Still here.
That's a great thing about a proven track record. It's a little document, a file that you've got in your head. It says, right, we've done this before.
Yeah.
We'll do it again. And the right people will remind you of that.
Yeah.
They'll remind you. They will say to you, come on, you got this.
Yeah.
You've done this before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's where I'm very, very blessed. I mean, as much as I'm my own biggest nightmare, getting myself in. Also, I'm very blessed to have family and friends that will recognise that, and they will, they'll recognise when you're not feeling strong, and they will just give you the arm as well as the kick, the backside.
Kicks are just as good sometimes.
Yeah.
Metaphorically speaking.
Oh yeah. Don't.
Do you think sometimes though that strength is a bit messy?
Of course it is.
It's a bit all over the place.
Because things that need strength aren't easy.
Yeah, so it doesn't need to look pretty or perfect. It's just like getting yourself through that place and time.
Most definitely.
Because the thing is, you're actually learning something in those moments. If nothing else, you're learning that you're far more resilient than you ever gave yourself credit for. Mm-hmm. But you'll learn skills. You'll learn stuff about people around you, who you can trust, who you can't trust. I think the one thing that I've learned in my life is that when I'm going through a period where I need to dig into resilience, I know who my people are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Quite quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
those 3 a.m. people that you can call and they'll say, "Yeah, I'm there for you."
Yeah, and if you're lucky, you can probably count them on one hand.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a painful lesson to learn sometimes.
It is, isn't it? Isn't it strange how that when you're going through something, there are some people that you thought you could lean on, rely on, and actually you got it so wrong.
And then there can be huge blessings in the people that you didn't know.
Even credit, and they come forward with such amazing gestures and kindness. It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, these people that don't step forward, it doesn't mean they're bad people or whatever.
Yeah, because everybody's got their own life, and we don't know always what's going on with them. So it's not there's no digs here, but it's the blessings of the people that as well, where you learn, oh my gosh, like they're there for you, because maybe they understand the thing you're going through. And they're like, oh yeah, like I've got this, like I understand, and then they know how to support you.
The one thing I do know is when you're going through something, there's lots of people watching.
Yeah.
And I at the danger of being unpopular on this podcast, there's a percentage that are secretly hoping that you don't make it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, true.
And
is that human nature, do you think?
It's an ugly part of human nature if it is.
Yeah, it's not nice. Yeah.
Well, I think it's a reflection on where they are, because somebody who's doing the work, working are getting through this, learning these skills, building their emotional resilience, they're not sat here judging you. It's the people who aren't doing the work, I believe.
And they're probably not listening to this episode.
Yeah, probably not. So we haven't offended them.
No, well, that 100% agree with that. I mean, that was something that recently bothered me. The fact I went into a room where I chose to remove myself from a circle, and I went into a room where I had 2 people that I had an issue with, and then all of a sudden 3 weeks later 20 people had an issue with me out the blue. So it makes you think, well, what's going on in my absence behind it? Well, do you know what, I don't need that.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's a whole different subject for another time. But the good thing about strength and being strong inside is you no longer need their validation.
Yeah, true.
You can pick and choose your friendships because you know you don't need what you perceive that they're bringing to the table, because you understand. You know, you can evaluate relationships better because you've got your own strength. You know, you don't need them to prop you up. You can do it on your own. And I'm not saying do it on. I'm not saying shut people out.
Yeah.
But when you've got your own strength, you don't need their validation. It leaves you, you can sort of see, you can evaluate relationships different. You can see who's bringing what to the table. If it's one-sided, it'll often make you reduce your circle. But it leaves you with clarity and more authentic connections that are left behind.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
It's almost like... it's where you can, in those moments when you are like that, you can do a bit of a mental cull and work out who your tribe is. Do you think when you're in the midst of having to dig into your, you know, your inner resources, into your grit, do you think that's the time to try and solve whatever the issue is, or just focus on moving through that phase you're in at that point in time?
Honestly, it depends. I don't want to give a blanket response to that because it depends what our listeners are going through, to be honest. So I would say a bit of both, and I think have self-trust and self-belief to know what's right in that moment.
I can only speak from my personal experience. I know when I've been digging deep, the quality of my thinking hasn't always been the greatest, because I think I'm too strong in emotion. At that point, I'm stressed.
Yeah,
That's going back to our triggers last episode.
Yeah, but I also know that if I don't, in that moment, try and resolve and fix everything at that point, just allow myself to flow through this part, and my thinking will change. I think when you really feel like you're leaning into reserves, the eagerness to resolve and fix everything in that moment can actually be part of the problem, not actually the solution.
Yes.
It's almost like step out to step back in, walk away from it.
Yeah, but while you're in the midst of a difficult situation and you're in survival mode, that's very difficult.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is very
But I guess
difficult.
I'm thinking as a single mum, like, you've just got to get on with it and get through it. So even if you're not sleeping, even like you've got to just, that's where you're like, when I have been plowing through it. So I haven't been able to pause because I've still got to take care of what needs to be taken care of. So that's why I was a little bit like, yes, but maybe. So I'm a bit vague with it because it really depends on what's going on.
Well, we kind of touched on this the other week when we were talking about toxic positivity. People, just keep going. You've got this. Stiff upper lip. And actually those throwaway statements that people give you in those moments, you know, meant with good intention, but actually probably saying to that person, look, I know it's tough right now, but it will get better.
Yeah.
Don't lose hope. But yeah, I just thought it was important because there may be people listening to this episode like, I am really in the thick of dealing with something at the moment, and although I feel like I don't have enough resilience, I also need to figure a way out.
Yeah.
And I've always found stepping away as much as I possibly can, unplug to reconnect. You know, don't fix it at a time. You know, strength isn't always about feeling really strong. It's just about moving forwards through the mess. Just move forward through the uncertainty, and that's where your true strength starts to show up. And you can keep going even though you don't feel like you can.
Yeah.
In that
Definitely.
moment. It's that wading through treacle.
Yeah, sometimes you've got far more than you think you have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have got this.
Yeah. Life can be tough, but so can you. Individuals, we can be tough as well. And every time life flings a challenge at you, a test on you, it's just giving you another opportunity to remember how tough you actually are.
Yeah. Another opportunity to adjust your perspective.
Yeah.
Because when you come through this, next time you see the same problem, you'll either see it coming or you've got the learnings that you've taken from this situation that you'll take into the next time.
I've been here before.
Yeah.
I've been here before.
And, so every time, though it may initially feel the same, or it might feel similar, it'll never feel quite as impactful as it did the first time. And each time we revisit it, it does get easier because your perspective changes, you get stronger. I mean, life's challenges don't tend to change. It's how we deal with them.
Yeah.
It's what we have in the bank. It's how strong we are. And that's something that we just, with life experience and over time, or say life experience, that could be a fast thing that's happened, to a young person, or things that we've learnt over time.
Yeah, I think it's just allow that muscle to be flexed and, to just remember how resilient you are. But I would also say is take a look at the situation and go, is the suffering optional?
Yeah.
Because sometimes it is, especially with those good ideas. Louise need to have a word. I wanted to keep the episode short, but it was just really for those people that are on a bit of a journey and feel like they don't have the mental resilience to kind of keep going. Trust your roots, trust your strength, keep going. You've got this, but sometimes you just need to take a bit of a look at what's going on in and around you.
Yeah.
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 Cool. Right. Thanks very much for listening. We'll catch you next time. If you're on YouTube, please click that bell icon. And if you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple, please subscribe and you'll get notified as we release future episodes. Thanks very much for listening.
If you or someone close to you needs to access mental health support, please contact your GP, or if it's out with normal office hours, get in touch with NHS 24 on 111. Alternatively, contact the Samaritans on 116 123. All calls are free of charge from any phone. You can also find more support information on the Tickety Boo website, ticketyboopodcast.co.uk.